It's still the morning brief right here on Channels Television, and so we get to our first conversation, and it's a continuation from what we discussed yesterday when we had the Nigeria High Commissioner in South Africa, Mr. Tope Ajayi, come speak to us about the state of things, and he took time to dispel some of the perception of what is responsible for this round of xenophobic attacks, and he talked about engagement with the security agencies in South Africa and how everything is being done to restore things to normal. Let's have our correspondent in South Africa now, Innocent Samosa, join us to give us more insight into what is playing out. Good morning, Innocent, and welcome.
Good morning to you, colleague, and good morning to our viewers and listeners at home.
Yes, it's good to have you. So let's get right into it, Innocent. Talk to us about the state of things now that, we've heard that it was a misunderstanding of what some Nigerians were doing and, which some thought was a coronation, but that is not the case. But how safe are not just Nigerians, but other nationals that were said to have been attacked in this round of xenophobic attacks? How safe, are areas like Eastern Cape and Pretoria for foreign nationals from other African countries?
Well, I can tell you now that foreigners are safe in South Africa, and these are pockets of people, I must say, and some political parties, because we're moving towards general elections, and they have been telling citizens that they will get them jobs, and they make them believe that foreigners are the ones that are taking away their jobs. And that is a campaign strategy, but that campaign strategy is coming with a lot of confusion on the ground, where people really don't understand the issues on the ground and what's happening in Parliament and outside Parliament. So, but I can tell you now that the president has, assured foreigners, foreign nationals, when he was addressing, the nation yesterday. Yesterday it was Freedom Day in the country. So the president made it clear that if anyone is abusing foreigners, they will meet the wrath of the law. And I can tell you now, colleague, that the issue of xenophobia, the issue of fighting foreigners in the country, it has been here for quite some time now. And I can tell you that because South Africa is a developing nation, there is no way that you stop people from coming to South Africa and looking for greener pastures. And therefore, you find that competition is high. Trading competitions are high, and now frustration is that the foreigners are the ones that are a problem. And foreigners are not a problem. It's just competition in the market. You need to compete. But I guess also it comes from a political element where these citizens are being promised free things, free electricity, free water, and free that and that they'll create jobs. And when that is not happening, they now misdirect the anger to foreigners. But foreigners generally in South Africa are pretty much safe, because this is a campaign strategy, so to speak, from different political parties, promising citizens that, listen, foreigners are the ones that are taking your jobs. Therefore, when we come to power, we're going to make sure that we give you jobs. And it's really totally wrong for people to campaign in this fashion, colleague.
So, Innocent, you've confirmed that there's some political undertones to this, if we recall our conversation with the Nigeria High Commissioner. But some of the videos that we saw were rather disturbing, although that was also contested, that we shouldn't go wholesale with all of the things that are put out on social media, as some may be videos recalled from the past. But for those that are true, are you hearing any cases of police initiating investigation and possible trials of those who were attacking foreign nationals during this round of xenophobic attacks?
Indeed, colleague. In fact, the man that was abused in that video that was trending on social media, he's reported to come from Limpopo. He's indeed a South African who's coming from Limpopo. So, in a way, it gives you a picture of just how complex this issue is, because now because you can't speak Zulu or you can't speak a particular language, now they think that you are a foreigner. So that is just misdirected in many respects. But going back to your question, yes, there is a level of commitment on the ground. In fact, the soldiers, we do know that the soldiers are now deployed in different parts of the country to deal with the issues of crime. So part of the mandate were told by the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, that this is the mandate that they must now also put in their, in their investigations and in probing corruption, in making sure that people are safe in the country, whether documented or undocumented. In fact, the Constitution, if people really want to deal with the issues of undocumented migrants, they need to first deal with the borders. Our borders in the country are pretty much porous. So that encourages people from coming into the country undocumented, pretty much so. But also there's the element of corruption in home affairs where people get documents when they do not qualify. So the issue really goes deeper than I must say that the issue of xenophobia is just really a subset of a bigger discussion of immigration, migration in the SADC region. So it's an issue that perhaps I think the SADC region, they need to really deal with. The presidents in the SADC region, they need to put it on top of the agenda when they meet to really see how to deal with this, because part of the problem also is that there is that burden from South Africa's institutions. For an example, the correctional services, the health department, the education. So there is that element of a burden from the South African perspective. But I guess it's an issue that needs to be re-looked at by the leaders in the SADC region, colleague.
So before I let you go, I just want to find out what are the punitive measures is there any extra punitive measure beyond the usual laws that govern criminality in South Africa that the government is putting out to serve as deterrent to anyone who is perpetrating this crime? I know that the municipal elections are coming, maybe over 200 political parties participating, and then there are hotspots like Eastern Cape, I think somewhere in Durban, in KZN, and in Gauteng, I think Pretoria. So all of these places, different political parties leading in different provinces. But I want to find out, when the government says they will go hard on the people who are perpetrating this crime, is it based on the same set of laws, or there has to be some legislation to curb this as soon as possible? Because sadly, this may not be the last time xenophobia will prop up again. Another election will come, and politicians will take advantage of it.
Indeed, and I'm glad that you're bringing that element, colleague, because the issue here is that the government is pretty much reactionary. They do not deal with the issue from the ground, where the reasons of xenophobia, and I'm saying this because, like you rightly alluded to, they react to it when it happens. And again, going back to what you just indicated, the issue also is not because foreigners are taking people's jobs, and they're not, some of them, majority of them, the ones that I know, they go to private hospitals and they pay there. So, and there's an issue here in Gauteng where the funds were reversed to the treasury simply because they could not be utilized. So another element here is that is the issue of implementing funds. It's not the issue that foreigners are a burden to our health system. So it's really pretty much complex. And going back to what you just alluded to, going back to your question, are they measures? Yes, there are measures. If you are indeed abused, you can use the laws of the country to deal with these issues. We are told that the man who is leading this protest, March to March, your Operation Dudula, they're now being investigated by the state. And in fact, we're supposed to have the Nigerian ambassador to South Africa to speak to you. They referred us to Pretoria, saying that they cannot comment on the issue, and rightly so, because it's a big topic, and they do not want to give wrong messaging on the ground. But I think I think when issues like this happen, people can use the laws of the country to really deal with it. And people do win in court when they are being abused by by people. But processes also of the courts can take long, they can be tedious, and at times they're expensive to deal with that, if they give you a court in the Eastern Cape. So that can be pretty much challenging. But I can tell you there is some level of commitment on the ground to deal with the issue.
So, Innocent, on a final note, the role of security operatives or agents, as the case may be, such as the South African National Defence Force. I know the Consular General is calling for investigations into the death of 2 Nigerians, Emmanuel Amaramiro and Ekpenyang Andrew. Emmanuel, we understand, died from injuries allegedly sustained after being beaten by personnel of the National Defence Force on April the 20th, while Andrew, on the other hand, is said to have been apprehended on April the 19th in Pretoria following an alleged altercation with members of the Tshwane Metro Police, and that his body was later discovered. Is this a pattern here that we're seeing?
I would not say it's a pattern, because if you look at the issue of crime in the country, is pretty much not targeted, and at times people feel like it's targeted. And I can tell you now that there are South Africans also who are being targeted because of crime and because the economy is not doing well. People are looking for ways to malicious ways, so to speak, to make ends meet, and some foreigners, locals, find themselves in the crossfire. I would not sit here and say that it's targeted to foreigners only. If you look at the farm murders that are currently, the number of farm murders, majority of those people are South Africans, and they are black people. So that hence the government made it clear that we want to bring the soldiers on the streets to really deal with the issue of crime. With the issue that the South African National Defence Force abused a foreigner, I have no much information about the court processes as to how far that issue is at the moment. But I can tell you now that it's pretty much not targeted. No one is targeted, but it's just that at times people find themselves in the crossfire when there is an economy that is not growing for almost a decade. So people are pretty much frustrated because they're not employed, the economy is stagnant. So those are the issues that really precipitate, so to speak, some of these crimes that we're seeing in the country.
And, we hope that the commitment that you said is, pretty much there to deal with these issues is demonstrated when we see those videos, because sometimes those security operatives appear complicit, with some looking the other way while the attacks are ongoing. But on a lighter note, Innocent, we hope that Nigerian men are not targeted for the high success rate in wooing South African women who evidently are well endowed in all the right areas. Kumas, thank you very much.
We're really trying to compete with them because they are very much, they give gifts. So, and as South Africans at times we can't catch up. I mean, I guess maybe it's time for us to learn as South African men from Nigerian men.
Yes, please take lessons from Nigerian men. Innocent Samosa is Channels Television's correspondent in South Africa. Thank you, Innocent, for coming through on this conversation.
Thank you so much, colleague.